Today we want to use ChatGPT to make a quiz to revitalize product interest. The quizzes, online quizzes can not only be used to get information, but also to shape the questions in such a way that they will revitalize product interest. The situation here is quite an interesting one with this online dating service, which had lost the membership by about 50% since COVID. So there was a lot of loss that occurred since that time. The first thing we do is before we ask ChatGPT what questions to make for the quiz, we have to get some feedback from what they are actually saying in the field. What problems are they having? And we will research, we will tell it to do some research. What are they actually saying about their problems? And we should survey that with a question like this here. So here we briefly tell ChatGPT what we are doing. And then we say, I want you to scour real review sites and social media to find out the exact words the singles use when talking about their struggles with using dating sites. Get real review sites only and look for common patterns or wordings that come up over and over again. And then that will give it a realistic idea of what the problems are. So then the survey can be shaped based on that. All right. So we ask this question, and then ChatGPT comes up and says, well, I used Trustpilot and Reddit and YouTube, and I came up with these three categories: problem, what they tried, and dream outcomes. Let's look at the results briefly. So these are the problems that it found people are having, quite a few. And so you can see these would be like wording that people are using. And so we have to kind of resonate with their problem. What they tried that didn't work. So we have words here, paid for premium, no date, lowered my standards and regretted it. Okay, good. And here are the dream outcomes. So these were three categories of survey results that ChatGPT found in the media, in the social media. Now here we got asked a bit more detail on patterns that did work. So that was basically effective strategies. Good. It found all of these things. Good. And it will now keep these things in mind as we keep working through the remaining questions. So we did that. Good. The next thing to do is, well, we did that as well. The next thing is we tell ChatGPT what our current product is and what we're trying to achieve with the survey. So in this case, we're saying we have a small dating site and we want to make it that people will reignite their journey towards a meaningful, harmonious relationship. We want them to revitalize their purpose. And then we say, well, make a 30-question survey out of that. And this is the next wording that we do. So the name of our website is Quick Spirit Singles. We explained that there was a lot of trouble with COVID. And then we say, now we want to make a survey for our old members or the ones that have gone away and also new members and revitalize them. Here we say make a quiz. So this is wording that you can probably use for your own business to a large degree. You can modify this so that it works quite well. And the questions could be broken down into categories and possible answers. Oh, categories of the questions, what are the questions are, and then what are the possible answers. So that's the information that we want to get from ChatGPT. So here's the long question, good. And then it came up with 30 questions like this here. So it came up with these categories: perception of loneliness. This would be a question. And then it had these possible answers. Here's the next question. these possible answers. And so these are the questions in the category of loneliness, appreciation of happy family and relations, this stuff here. Good. Then willingness to use an online dating service. That was a category that ChatGPT suggested, talking about our product. And then they can give us some feedback about that. Good. Here is how much hope do they have? Okay, so far so good. And a couple of other questions and categories. In total, it's actually 30 questions. Now, these questions may seem a little bit boring, but stay with us. There's one trick way how we can make them much more juicy and more fun to answer. And you'll find that in a moment. Here's an interesting suggestion that ChatGPT made, and that is one could tie the quiz responses to certain dynamic outcomes. One could basically say, well, there are different types of people, and one could then say, well, in response to your answers, you could be one of these. You could be ready for real love, hopeful but hesitant, disconnected but curious. And so one could say one of the results from the quiz could be finding where they are and then giving them feedback based on what they are, where they are at. It can also suggest some sort of number value tags for the questions, like this stuff. And then this is the output that could be coming from the survey. One could say, great, you're ready for real love. And it explains it, da-da-da-da, call to action. And you're hopeful but hesitant, answer, call to action. So it can do that for a bunch of different categories. And then ChatGPT suggests that for these categories, it could come up with short 3-letter abbreviations that can be used internally. All right. And then it can apply these points to each answer. It basically means RRL was ready for real love. So if somebody says, how often do you feel lonely? Never. That would mean ready for real love gets 2 plus points. Here's the report. Good. So in other words, we're going to have some additional dynamic categories, results. We had these ones. And then ChatGPT can come up with assigning points to the answers. We've just seen that. Now, here's an important point. Sometimes these questions can be somewhat boring and people will not want to answer them. But there's one trick way how we can ask ChatGPT to make the questions to be more fun and more thought-provoking. So what you can ask ChatGPT is say, well, great, looking at our 30 questions, can you word those questions so that they are more fun to answer and maybe a bit thought-provoking? And so then that's a real interesting skill that it has. It can make those questions more fun, more engaging, and it will, of course, increase the completion rate. And people will also think deeper and have some degree of emotional resonance. So that is very, very important. So just by asking this question here, kind of gold, worth gold, it will reword the questions and come up with a new conversational and uplifting tone. Same 30 questions, and here we go. All right. So here, under the perception of loneliness, look, the question is kind of more alive, right? And so are the answers. So basically, every question sounds more alive. People can think more about it, and it will be more fun to answer because they are more playful. What lights you up most about the idea of being in a loving relationship? If love were a garden, what would you want to grow with a partner? So these are more fun ways to think about it, and ChatGPT is quite good in making questions like that. All right. Now that you have these beautiful questions generated by ChatGPT, there are, of course, many ways how you can get them into some quizzing software. We, of course, recommend our accelerator system, where you can actually go through this set of questions that you did in ChatGPT directly online, and it goes like this. So you can basically type in the different answers, let's say free spirit singles, what were the problems, this and that and the other thing, suggested categories, and then you have a button where it can generate questions. And so it would have done all of these things automatically that you did manually with ChatGPT. And then from this screen, it can generate a complete structured editing screen where you can edit everything. Here's the category. Here's where you can change the question. Here are the different answers. You can add and delete them online. And then that comes up with a beautiful quiz that you can then send out to people. So here, when was the last time? So and so. We would say, can't even remember. Good. How often do you wish there was someone now and then? So people can just fill this out online, and it will create a small database for you with all the submissions. And it will also, that's most important, generate fantastic answers that are based on the feedback that they've given. So I hope this was helpful. Like and subscribe. There will be a lot of good stuff coming here. The next thing we'll be reviewing is how to get ChatGPT to evaluate the answers that you're getting. Now, if you want to download a list of the questions that we ask from ChatGPT, see a link in the video description. And have a lot of fun trying it with your own business.